Listeners everywhere, welcome to the Movie Show with Joel and Ryan, the weekly fix for your screen addiction and a trusted source for discussion of all things film and television. Please keep in mind that for the purposes of this podcast, Joel and Ryan are not acting as journalists, but rather fellow moving picture enthusiasts. All of their opinions should be taken as such. Also, please be warned that while Joel and Ryan may seem like petulant children, they are, in fact, adults who may occasionally use adult language. While they promise to bleep out all the worst words, it's a good bet you will still understand what they were saying. And now, with no further ado, here's Joel and Ryan.
Quiz, hot shot. Welcome to the Movie Show with Joel and Ryan. For another week, we are so happy to have you. I am Joel.
And I'm Ryan.
And we're old school style today. It is OG Movie Show with Joel and Ryan.
Fun and games only today.
Yep, it is just the two of us. And we're gonna be I think it's a fun idea. Ryan came up with a really fun idea. I ran with it. I think hopefully you'll enjoy it. We're going to try something new a little bit later, but first, we're going to just, it's been a while since we have recapped some of the things that we have been watching currently. So
what have you been watching?
Probably the big thing was last week was the final episode of the Mia Farrow, Woody Allen documentary on HBO Max. That was really well done, really disturbing, and has sparked some fun debate because, Woody Allen is just one of those people that if you love Woody Allen, you are a pretty rabid Woody Allen fan. And so it continues to spark that debate of, well, are the allegations of sexual abuse true? But then if they are true, it's that same argument with Roman Polanski and some of the others. Like how do you hold the person versus the art? So it's all fascinating.
It's hard when you read, especially. Well, I know a lot about the Woody Allen thing because there was, not much of that, and even in the HBO doc. Is news, that's all that information's all out there. I think by actual news sources, those sorts of things tend to get framed in very simple ways. And when you sit down and really dig into it and learn about it, it is crazy. Polanski's the same thing. Until you really know the details of his crime, it's not enough just to say what happened. The details are important. How it came about, it's chilling to read. Mm-hmm. And of course, he fled prosecution and went to France, and so he's also been somewhat contrite about it, even though his sort of artistic arrogance gets in the way of that all the time. Like he can't, and that, I think that's human nature. You can't be sorry for something and yet not instinctually want to defend yourself. I think it's always been hard. These days, it's particularly hard to actually apologize for something.
Right.
It's rough. And his victim doesn't even, kind of just wants it to stop. So but Alan's never really, he doesn't speak about it at all. But the interesting thing in the HBO doc is that they have him on tape. Yeah. And I have to say, even though he doesn't incriminate himself exactly on tape, the tapes really make him out to be a villain in the story in a way that I think people really try not to avoid that. Yeah. With him, if you're a big fan, or that stuff's interesting. It's unpleasant, but it is interesting, and it is a digestible way. Those documentaries that we're seeing, HBO is doing fantastic ones. Really, all of them are really, really good, where they really bring a lot of information to you. Yep. That's So that's interesting. I'm sorry, I don't mean to talk about it when I haven't even watched it, but
no, I mean, it's a well done documentary. Obviously, it is it is Dylan Farrow's story essentially. So it's very much from her point of view. And
right,
and
but there's nobody on the other side that even wants to talk about
they
it.
didn't, and they didn't talk about it. So I've been watching that one. A couple other great documentaries. There's a new documentary about Pele. And it's brand new. It's wonderful. If you're, he's a icon of sports, and and it really focuses on just his time with the Brazil national team, and that was a really interesting way to frame talking about his career. And then then there's another one. It was a death. It's called Murder Among the Mormons, and it's a true crime documentary. I laugh because when I first proposed watching it, my wife said, why do I want to watch Murder Among the Morons? Because she just misread it, and I'm like, Mormons. And she's like, oh yeah, that sounds interesting. Let's watch that.
I want to watch Murder Among the Morons.
And that's what I said. I'm like, I kind of want to watch Murder Among the Morons. that actually sounds really cool. Again, yeah, these are, that one it follows the true, that sort of true crime, hits all the plot points of a true crime documentary with twists and turns. And this one's a little bit more, I think their big twist isn't such a big twist. I mean, it is
it that the killer drank caffeine?
No,
because that would be awesome.
Yeah,
if that really was the cause of the murder among the Mormons.
He wore publicly bought underwear or something. And that was it just
forbidden.
It was very, it was just very, it was interesting. It of course if you don't know, if you know a lot about the Mormon religion, or if you are just sort of interested, but in this, in the Church of Latter-day Saints, just as a concept you don't know much about, it does a decent job sort of giving you a basic overview of Mormonism and the things that Mormons hold sacred, and how somebody can use that to try to, for their political, or I mean not political, but their financial gain. So I found those. Again, big surprise. Joel's watching a lot of documentaries.
I can't do documentaries, especially these days. The less reality that comes across my screen, the better.
Yeah.
Even though I sort of appreciate them, we're in such a great era for that stuff. There's always been really good ones going back, but there's so many choices, and there's so many interesting stories, and all these different platforms that want content are, there are a lot of most documentaries, frankly, come and go without a lot of fanfare, but every once in a while one hits, and because they're not that expensive a thing to do, it's kind of like the old early 70s studio system. You just throw a little money there, throw a little money at that guy, see what they come up with, and maybe you probably have something that hardly anyone will care about, but you might have what's the motorcycle movie that was such a big hit that's so terrible that everybody loves?
A motorcycle movie that's terrible that everyone loves.
Yeah, it's about kind of about motorcycle gangs. It's got Peter Fonda and Jack
Nicholson. Easy Rider.
Yeah, Easy Rider. That's like $4 basically to the studio. It was like, here. And Easy Rider became this thing that keeps the gift that keeps on giving. It's popular. People still are interested in it. It still makes the studio money. Like that. Every once in a while you hit on that. When your investments are small, you know what I mean? It's that you're willing to take some chances that movies aren't like that anymore, but docs are still like that. It's like, well, a lot of people want to tell a really weird story that that a suit can't imagine anyone's interest in. They got to go out and raise their own money and stuff. But if you're an industrious person, you can raise enough to do a decent documentary. And if you do a great job, you can win an Oscar. And
yeah, it's the kind of thing, the biggest investment like a studio would make is time. It just takes longer to do a documentary because you're chronicling all of this, in theory, like depending, of course, on the type of documentary. If you're trying to follow the journey of something, you just have to invest time. So also, at a future episode, we are going to talk about the Oscar nominations that came out this week. We will get into that closer to the actual air date of the Academy Awards.
I haven't even looked to see what was nominated. Is Geostorm nominated for anything?
No, Geostorm, I believe, was snubbed again. I know that's from about 4 years ago, but I keep thinking it's got to break through at some point. Right. I do want to get, since we're, and again on documentaries, do want to give love to a documentary called Crip Camp. It's about a camp for people with intellectual disabilities and physical disabilities. It's as a subject that is very close to my heart. I love it. I'm so happy it was nominated, and it's still available on Netflix. Also, because you're the fourth person now saying, "Oh, you got to watch that." Yeah, it's so good. It's one of those where you're just like, obviously I watched it through a veil of tears with my eyes all just kind of glazed over. Also, was able to catch Judas and the Black Messiah.
Was it good?
It was really terrific. Yeah, it was really terrific. Fascinating.
Part of the Warner Brothers direct-to-streaming / theatrical releases of the year. Obviously, a huge one came out yesterday, the Zack Snyder's 4-hour Academy ratio Justice League. Yeah. And others. There was that Denzel Washington film. These aren't making a big dent in the theaters, but that one looked particularly cool and a little out of season, I think, because of the times we live in are so weird. You know what I mean? Yeah. To be honest, I've known a lot about the Black Panthers. And this is the way to learn about them in a dramatic sort of rather intense biopic kind of setting. And a series of really terrific performances by some actors that I was, previously unaware of. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. So,
I saw a few of the Oscar nominations back at the holidays, but anything that's come out since I haven't, or that has reached the general public since, I've been woefully ignorant of. So, and it's weird. Oscars in April is weird. Yep. They really should be over. It shouldn't be mid-year where we're talking about last year's movies. The whole thing is odd. Mm-hmm. I know that's strange, but I wish they hadn't made when they were going to do their Oscars based on the hopes of having a ceremony, which I don't think they're going to be able to have anyway. No. So it sort of bums me out.
I think it'll be because
the pageantry of the ceremony and the 18 million commercials and the cuts to the audience, maybe I'm off a little bit. I guess people love the red carpet and stuff, but
I think they'll do what they did with the Golden Globes is it'll be like, we're going to invite an audience of first responders and, people who have been vaccinated, but the celebrities will be
a lot more people vaccinated by then, but I just don't know how you can plan for now what you don't know is going to happen a month from now.
Yeah. I also think that, tonally it would be a misstep. I think I
definitely agree with that.
Yeah.
Who's wearing what gown and stuff at this point in this year? It's just people really get into that, but I can't imagine
and it will be fun to get back into it next year. But I don't think that we're at a place mentally where as a country
where we want to see the rich and famous on parade right now.
So have you watched the Snyder cut of Justice League? Have you invested 4 hours?
I haven't had a spare 4 hours to sit down, and I actually want to sit down and watch it. I like Zack Snyder. He's overwrought and over the top, but comic books tend to be that. I've always said I like the recreation of comic panels and the artistic way at which he approaches that sort of movie making. So, it all ultimately depends on if the story is awesome or not.
Mm-hmm.
We already kind of know the abbreviated, studio sanctioned version of the story, which is not hot. So making it twice as long, like, I don't know how much better that can make it per se, but
yeah,
sure, I'm interested in it.
I'm interested too. Yeah,
it's definitely, but my expectations are in check. I mean, I'm not expecting it to be
right.
Because even the idea at the time, it still has all the problems that it had back then. It's seems rushed to do a team up movie that you haven't earned very much, especially one that's on the heels of a really divisive, the Batman versus Superman film, and it'll be tough to see. But I think it'll definitely show you that even at 4 hours, even with the sides cropped on your TV like you're watching an old Mary Tyler Moore episode, all that. Even with all these weird, stupid choices, let the artist do their thing, and on that level, you get a lot of executives involved in the process, but when you're spending $2 billion or whatever, but I'm telling you, it's always better when you just let it be what it's going to be. You can't, I don't know of any times where I can't think of any time where a studio has come in and a bunch of executives have come in with some hired gun and made a movie, even one that was out of control, better. Heaven's Gate is still better longer. Once Upon a Time in America is better the way it was supposed to be edited. You didn't fix anything. You just made it. You made a bad thing the most horrible possible, and then sometimes these phoenixes grow out of that, but I don't know that this will be a case of that. I just think that leave the artist alone. Now, to be fair, Zach stepped down. His daughter died. I mean, very tragic. So
I think that's it. Well, frankly, that's got to be the only reason to, the circumstances of him stepping away are the only, that's part of the story. To me, it is. It's like, okay, now he's getting a chance to do the movie that he was hoping to do before, and that to me is part of it, and that's a part of me that and again, a fan of comic book movies, I'm like, I want to see what did he originally have. Can you talk? I mean, is it possible to talk briefly, because I don't know how interesting this will be. Why did he? I mean, is there a reason for the 4:3 ratio?
He shot it almost entirely with IMAX cameras.
Okay, so that's
why
which
is not quite Academy ratio, but Zach's films, I believe all of his films have only ever been shot in scope. And he's a master, really, at framing in that.
He does, he puts together a gorgeous picture on that screen. That is one thing I don't think even his detractors could take away from him.
So, but he saw something that just blew his mind, and he wanted to do this a lot more IMAX footage. And the IMAX footage is, I can't remember exactly what it's like, 1:5 or something. So it's much closer to that old ratio. So when you open up the mat, what you get is that. And that's all he's doing. He's just not playing with the frame at all. He's opening it up, at least that part of the footage. And then the rest of the footage, he's reframing, but I trust him to do that. I don't like reframed movies, but this really isn't what this is. This is sort of this here, guys, this is everything that we got. And actually, when we watch it this way, it looks kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't. I'm like, when I read read that it was in that ratio, that aspect ratio, it's like, okay, interesting choice, and I just didn't know.
It's very strange. I mean, there have been a few movies done that way throughout the years, and a bunch recently. A lot of, if you go to our Halloween episodes, a lot of these horror movies are shot in this old monster movie framing, and it's interesting visually. But this is the first big time, event film that's even an option for.
Right.
So that's why it's that way. It's because of the action footage, all the digital shots. There's plenty of the 4-hour runtime where there's nothing living or no camera involved in the frame whatsoever. It's just digital madness. So that stuff's easy to adjust, and especially if you're doing a complete re-edit of a movie and you're doing all those effects, not from scratch, but there's almost nothing that Whedon did on the movie that they kept.
Right. Yeah, I've read that too. That'll be.
That's unusual too. Usually when you go revisit a film, you're like, well, I wrote and shot the plates for this sequence. They finished the effects. I'll take those, whatever. Yeah. But they're just like, no, I don't even want to. I mean, Snyder very famously has not even watched that version of the movie.
Yeah. Well.
Which is crazy to me, but it's true. Goyer and Christopher Nolan basically sent him a text and said, "Have you seen it yet?" And he's like, "No." And they're like, "Don't see it. It'll you don't need that in your life right now. It'll break your heart."
Oh, wow. And
he's like, "Okay." So he's never even seen the abomination of which he rips on in public, Well, it's an interesting story. Maybe we'll do a deep dive into the differences between versions and all the drama behind the scenes, because there's a ton of that.
Sure.
We try and not get into that kind of thing on this show because we're not reporters, and you always feel like we're going to go down. I mean, at least that's how I feel. I feel like we're going to go down some path of, the stuff that happened between the producers and the fella who plays Cyborg, and
right.
Like, we can read and repeat what we've seen, but we don't know. Yeah. We're not.
Yeah. And all of that is interesting in its own way. To me, the only behind the scenes thing I truly do find fascinating is that Zack Snyder, because of the crazy, horrible circumstance by which he had to step down, was essentially by popular outcry was given the money and the resources to create this movie.
For what was thought to be a fairly unpopular franchise, because in nerddom, you can look at the raw numbers of the people who saw Batman versus Superman, and then you can look at the people who claim to like it. It's a fairly highly rated audience film. But the noise about it, Joel, and we talk about this on the show all the time, the noise about it is deafeningly negative. And because of that, that's its rep. And that really is how things work these days. So to find out that there were people wanted a sequel to that, and that they wanted it to be good, and that they thought there could be some integrity in rebuilding it, and that the studio got in a lot of trouble over a couple of these scandals, just said, let's do it, and basically paid for a whole nother movie.
Yeah.
Because like I said, all this effects footage, all this stuff, it all had to be done. I mean, somebody had to flip the bill for it again. And we saw that a little bit with Solo, A Star Wars Story, which also has all kinds of crazy behind the scenes business. But that happened where it was like, we need to salvage this. This happened way after the fact.
Yeah.
The Justice League that hit theaters a few years back, I mean, it's not just like unwatchably terrible, but it's just, you just feel the gross sort of pandering compromise in every frame. When you're watching it, it feels condescending in a way that as a response to Batman versus Superman, which feels baffling at times, but never feels like it's just explaining everything to you because you're such an idiot. And Justice League really feels that way. It's like a movie made by suits for suits.
Yeah.
And it just is just criminally bad in that way. And the the exercise of the new director brought on board, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Why would he take that job? He's a super rich guy. It feels like you can only lose by doing it. And he's lost big time. Like, and it feels like, I could be wrong, but several people from behind the scenes have said, it feels like he just, like a lot of this came out of resentment of not wanting to do it. Well, then why do it?
Right.
I don't understand. It is a fascinating story. Yeah. So we'll see.
Yeah. So yeah, it will be interesting.
But I haven't seen it yet, so that'll be the key to us doing a show and really talking about this stuff.
But yeah, I think it is. I look forward to.
And if you want to do your own research, there's a Exorcist sequel that was shot by 2 different directors with the same cast with 2 totally different stories. One of which was 70% all new reshot footage. The Exorcist, The Beginning, which is the reshot version by Rennie Harlan, and Paul Schrader's Exorcist. I can't remember what his is called. That's not very helpful of me, is it?
Yeah, I was about to just blurt it out, but I don't think I'm.
But that's the only time where I remember like a movie came out or a movie was like screened for a test audience and a bunch of students, and they're like, "Can we fix this?" And the writer-director in this case was like, "I can't fix it. I mean, we want to finish a couple effects, but this is it. This is the movie." And they were like, "Well, we're gonna have a different guy come in and redo it." This was Morgan Creek Studio at the time. And they brought in Rennie Harlan, who is the yin to Paul Schrader's yang of the human race. They're nothing alike as storytellers. And Rennie made a pretty decent commercial Exorcist film out of the same material. And they're both prequels to The Exorcist.
Yeah, I was right. I was going to say The Exorcist Dominion.
And that's the Dominion. Other. That's the Paul Schrader one that was shot and finished first, but came out a whole year later.
Yep.
And at the same week as Revenge of the Sith, I want to say, the only movie released in competition with Revenge of the Sith. Kind of fun. But that's small potatoes compared to this superhero stuff. I mean, it's interesting.
Yep.
Those stories are interesting. We'll see what this one brings about. I'm excited to see it, but I don't see how that movie that they wrote can be great necessarily.
Yeah.
It certainly could be a whole lot better.
Sure. Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah. So yeah, it'll be so before, I sidetracked you several this is an odd episode of the movie show with Joe.
Yeah, why not?
Because I sidetracked you into talking about all of these things, frankly, that I've seen.
I'm indulging in this because this is fun to do a weird episode every once.
Yeah. So is there any
we've been so tight with these big topics and these guests that we've not been able to just shoot the BS about movies for a long time. So that's fun.
Is there anything that you have been watching that you...
Well, I feel weird bringing these because this is so antithetical to the current event stuff we were just talking about. It really is super antithetical. I watched a handful of movies, a couple of movies from the early 90s and a couple of movies from 1996. And they were interesting. The first one to talk about is a movie I really loved, or I thought I loved for ages, which is Reversal of Fortune. Which just came out, in high definition, and it's been all restored and looks beautiful. It was never a beautiful movie to begin with, but it because it's shot very matter-of-factly, even though it shows this world of the super rich or whatever, it's still it's still a very humble piece of storytelling, basically. And it was weird. It was weird watching Ron Silver play, what's his face? Alan Dershowitz in it.
Right.
Because the movie's based on Alan's book, which is very self-serving to him. And Alan Dershowitz and Ron Silver, quite frankly, were entirely different people in 1990 than they were in 2002. They both went through quite a transformation as a result of 9/11, and I won't get into what that is, or because we already talked quite a bit of politics on the show, but it was weird watching those guys, watching that, which was my favorite part of the movie. Jeremy Irons won the Oscar for playing Klaus von Bülow, and rightfully so. He really does a really awesome job, and it's just a juicy part that a big overactor like Irons just totally attack and be awesome at, and it truly does work that way. The other big heavy hitter on it obviously is Glenn Close, who's narrating the thing from the grave, which is always an interesting concept that works pretty great in Reversal of Fortune. So I liked it, but I had a whole different I hadn't seen it in ages. The DVD was cropped and for television and looked terrible. I never owned it. So I haven't seen it since I saw the crop for television version on VHS. It was probably all the way back in college or something.
Yeah.
So this was me revisiting it for the first time in all those years. And it was frustrating how things I knew now encroached upon my enjoyment of it. I guess that was my experience with it. I was like, it didn't feel like the plucky team of like Harvard people, fighting for justice. It felt different.
Interesting.
And I think if you take that element out of it, all you really have is these rich people vamping for 2 hours, basically, which isn't as fun without the counterpoint. So I don't know, that was an interesting experience for me. And then 2 more, which are really interesting. Again, were interesting experience to watch. These are movies I had never seen. They were big, huge budget films at the time in 1991 and 1996. They were vanity projects by their star/producers, or in the case of the latter, a star/director. They were both spearheaded by women, which should be cool. But they were both super terrible. One of them was Bette Midler and James Caan's For the Boys, which was this made-up bio story about a Bob Hope-like guy who takes on a comedic, awesome singer sidekick played by Bette Midler, and how it tells the story. This is where it goes wrong. As a film about these performers and their drama and whatever, like, it could have been a good movie. And when it plays on that level, it's watchable. Where it totally falls down is it's a comment on the evolution of warfare through these USO performers. And it's flat out not capable of telling that story in a way. Even there's a scene, and sorry if I'm super spoiling it. So if you always wanted to watch For the Boys and you never have, in my opinion right now, means nothing to you, it's still a fascinating movie to check out, because it's star vanity run amok, truly. It really is. I mean, it's a bad movie because the star was in charge of every decision, and almost every decision they make is bad. It's hard to explain, but there's no vulnerability in any of these characters. They go to combat with each other. That's all they are capable of doing. And because of that, the longer it goes, the less and less we care about them, which is really an odd thing. But the war scenes, the scene where they're in Vietnam and she's watching her son get killed, is like it's staged by teenagers on a stage. Truly, it's well staged by teenagers, but it lacks all filming type cinematic sophistication that you need. Just the idea of it is bizarre and an extremely tough sell, and then to make it all kind of choreographed for Broadway just makes it just sucks. I don't know what to say. It's a train wreck film that by the time it was over, I hated it. But I was glad I watched it, because I knew about it at the time. It was the kind of movie I would have liked at the time in 91. Big production by 20th Century Fox, when 20th Century Fox was trying to kill itself. For the Boys and Shining Through and Alien 3. And there was a whole bunch of films at that time where they were on top of the world because of Die Hard and some other stuff. And they just used that money to almost put that studio in the grave until it was bought out. And this was part of that. This movie's crazy expensive when you're watching it. You can feel it. Huge, huge budget, costume, war. It's all shot in LA. Everything they had to recreate, Germany, Vietnam, was all built on these sets. And the sets feel huge and expensive, but they feel fake. And the whole movie just feels fake and awful. James Caan and Bette Midler hate each other. And that works in the parts, I suppose, where they hate each other. But it's supposed to be, people coming together. It's supposed to be that old school, they hate each other, but they love each other kind of story in it.
Or begrudging respect.
It's they hate each other and then they super hate each other. There's not a tender moment between them in the entire thing. And it feels like somewhere in there was supposed to be, and it just isn't. And of course they don't love each other. But they're a family of a sorts. That part maybe works. It's really, Khan is pretty bad in it because he was the big star coming off of Misery who got the role in this coveted role in this big movie, but it just wasn't. He had no say in what was happening in that film. So he was a big star who the other star got to make all the decisions, and you could just sort of feel that tension between them. Like I say, so that makes it interesting, but it's bad.
Yeah.
And I hate to say that for poor Bette, but you've noticed there are no Bette Midler movies after that. They don't let her make movies anymore. I mean, the studio is just like, you're done now, back to albums with you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or if you can hang in there, go back to the stage or something, but you're not. We'll cast you in this or that, but you're not. You're done.
Yeah. Yeah.
And as a Hollywood power broker, you're done. You have zero power. You've gone from 88 power to 0 power in one movie. And another movie that happened to was another movie I hadn't seen, didn't see it at the time, watched it. It's a better movie in a lot of ways, but it has all this kind of similar problems, which is The Mirror Has Two Faces.
Oh yeah.
Which was the last Streisand movie back in 1996, and there won't ever be another one. And she'd made really good movies up to that point. Academy nominated Prince of Tides. It's a little, I don't know what you'd call it, a little much. It's a little syrupy and a little heavy, but it's still pretty good film. Pat Conroy novel is good, and Streisand directs a pretty decent movie where unlike For the Boys, vulnerability is at play big time in that film, and that helps. It helps. It helps. And it got a bunch of Oscar nominations, and it still looks gorgeous and is pretty good. And then Yentl, of course, Yentl's weird because it's a very photoreal sort of strange drama with lots of goofy comedy in it. But the thing that brings Yentl down for the average viewer is the songs. Because it's not even a musical in a conventional sense. It's just 4 times during the movie, there's a song that the lead character sings, and it's totally incongruous with what you're watching. That happens. It only happens because the star is really good at singing. Like, I think if you take the songs out, Yentl's an interesting and kind of fun film. With the songs, it's a curiosity, or it's just,
I think that's a perfect way. I think
it's
that's
too easy to parody with the songs, right?
Right.
And once you can do that, once you can just make fun of it and disregard it, you don't have much left. But I believe Yentl, and I don't mind the songs. I don't care. You for me, my money, you can break out into song anytime you want in a movie.
Yeah, you hit it right on the head. It becomes, because of the songs in that plot, in that movie, curiosity is a great way to put it. It's this interesting thing. You certainly can say there aren't a lot of movies like that in the world.
Right. And there aren't.
That's, and
the closest thing Yentl has to a film is maybe Fiddler on the Roof. Right. But it's not that. It's something totally different. And because of that, it's It's weird. The songs make it weird. I don't know what else to say.
But the mirror has
the
two
consensus
faces.
about it.
Yeah,
anyway.
but the mirror has two faces, or La Mirror a deux faces. That's what it's based on.
I don't even know what that movie's supposed to be. I haven't seen the original French version, but it's this weird movie about how this weird mousy chick like hooks up with this sort of awkward professor guy played by Jeff Bridges. Fun watching Jeff Bridges play a geek or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly just because anytime I go back in time with Jeff, I'm like so grateful to see him doing a character that's different than this old codger character he only plays now, which I hate, which I loved in True Grit and have hated in everything else since. So that was fun because it's a very quirky, smart, antisocial guy that he's playing. It's just not, even in those days, that's not his role. But like James Caan, you can feel the sort of, he doesn't feel like Caan where he just wants to bite everybody's head off who comes into frame. He feels more like an animal who is always looking for a way to escape out the nearest door and never appear in this movie again. He has that look in his eyes. Yep. And that's in the movie, you know what I mean? That's what makes these films interesting. Like if I'd have known they were this interesting, I would have watched them a long time ago. But it's the same problem. It's the star of the movie has morphed this into some sort of weird life philosophy that she has, which is strangely, you know, where most movies are like, this is like kind of the ending of Grease, you know, that's sort of controversial. It's like, instead of it's okay to be yourself and you'll find true love or somebody will appreciate you for what you are, it's you have to sort of twist and turn and conform to every conventional idea of what beauty is. And if you do that, all the men in your life will not be able to resist you. And then you can be who you are. And it's like,
yeah. I
don't know, ladies, maybe you disagree, but I found it eye-openingly, crazily offensive when I got to the end of this film. And maybe I'm reading it wrong, but I feel like I'm incapable of reading it some other way. And George Segal's in this movie too. He's in both of those movies. We got to get him on the show because he'll have the inside dirt on what's going on. He should have had James Caan's movie in For the Boys because he is Bob Hope, basically. He could have played that role with some charm and vulnerability. Mm-hmm. That's what the role needed. Caan, who we praised, and I'm not saying Caan's a bad actor or anything, we praised him incredibly back in the Stephen King episode for basically leaving his ego at the door when he did Misery. Yeah. Which I know was hard for a guy like him, but he did it, and the work is on the screen, and it's captured forever. It's immortal now, so good for him. He couldn't do it in For the Boys. I don't know if that's the collaborators or what the deal was, but he just couldn't do it. Maybe it's just the kind of role it was. But it's weird that George Segal is a bit player in that. He wasn't a big fan at the time, or a big star at the time, I should say. Yeah. He was, you know, just comic relief or kind of a sitcom guy at the time. But he's that part. Like, he would have been great. And when you watch it, all the fans of it say, you know, I don't know who could be a fan of For the Boys, but they're out there and they say, oh, that would have fixed everything and people would have loved it then. And I don't think so, but they're not wrong that George Segal would have been better. George Segal would have been better as the weird professor as well. Totally. He totally would have been better. He replaced Dudley Moore at the last second. Dudley Moore was fired by Streisand because he couldn't remember his lines, which was because of a disease he was suffering from that eventually killed him. So there's mercilessness involved in that production for sure. She was running around like Kubrick, like shooting the same scene for 4 days in a row, 100 takes of it. And these actors at a certain point, they don't know what to do. They can't, you know, you can't do it 100. You can't do a scene 100 different ways. That's my feeling. I just really feel like no matter how good you are, you can't. You've got within you've got a few different takes on it, and maybe you can get to some place, or maybe there's a curve, but at a certain point, that curve starts going down. And once it starts going down, that's it. You're done. You can't make it better. So killing actors with takes, unless the aim is to make them do it in a more tired, boring way.
Yeah.
There's stories like that too. You know, Nick Meyer made William Shatner do to Khan and Wrath of Khan. He made him do Here It Comes like 100 times until he just did it where he was sick of it.
Yeah.
Because Shatner's incapable of not doing Here It Comes with like a telegraphing everything. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what the director didn't want. So there are some cases where exhausting an actor and making them sick of being alive actually make a movie better, but mostly it doesn't do that. And this is a film where you feel that exhaustion with the material, and you feel like where everybody's kind of saying stuff, but what's it about? Lauren Bacall's in it. She's pretty good in it, but she's barely in it. That helps.
Yeah. I'm remembering when that came out, people like that was the big takeaway was Lauren Bacall's performance in it.
She's pretty good in it.
She was wonderful.
She's pretty good. We have a little inside information. I happen to know that during the Christmas break during that movie, that the leading man of the movie really didn't want to go back to New York and finish that movie, and was actually looking into ways to not do it.
Yep.
If at all possible. So that's the sign of for a well-known lifelong professional who's been part of many troubled projects. That's a big step for a person like that to take.
On his holiday
they had to have been really, really miserable.
Yep. On his holiday break, he refused to comb his hair or brush his hair because he was so tired of even his hair being so micromanaged.
Yeah.
On that. And
you feel it. That's a awful movie, and it's bad enough that it's like, that's it. That's your last chance. We all tolerated you. We gave you all this money. We let you thing go 2 months over, and at that point, this thing had to have been a hit, and it wasn't. And so, no more Barbra Streisand films ever again. And now it's you can be on Meet the Parents 4 or whatever, but that's it.
Yeah.
Back to, you know what I mean? Back to albums with you, back to music. Maybe that's for the best.
You can do
hard to say.
Her residency in Vegas or whatever she was. I think it was Vegas or she just did a big series.
It was Vegas, where she just did this handful of set amount of shows.
Yeah, the sit downs. Yeah.
But that was I'm not ripping on Streisand.
No, not at all.
2 out of 3 of her movies are pretty good.
No, but she is, and I say this without malice, she is a true diva.
Yeah, and they gave her an inch and she took it a mile, and then that's
and she is someone who has who's always had very strong opinions and very strong a strong outlook, and so to give her an opportunity to direct, Prince of Tides was was a pretty good movie, and so
but Prince of Tides was anchored by the Conroy biographical story, which is very powerful. This isn't. This is a French farce that she turned into some really weird life philosophy statement that is a thing that nobody on this planet can relate to. And it's weird that it climaxes at that point. It's a bizarre film. But if you got 2 hours and 20 minutes, it's immaculately shot. Lauren Bacall and George Segal are pretty good in it. And it's something else. There's nothing else quite like it, except For the Boys a little bit. For the Boys is just so... This film doesn't have that problem. This film's trying to be funny. It's a comedy with no laughs whatsoever. For the Boys is trying to be dramatic, and it's just being combative and awful and negative constantly. That film was harder to get through. It was similarly beautiful, you know what I mean? Right. But Mirror Has Two Faces I got bored with, which is criminal, but I never hated it. I was just like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And when you finally get it, because the movie's not subtle, it comes out and tells you what it is. And when it does, you kind of can't believe that such a movie is happening. it's that weird a story idea, and you can call that sort of originality. I don't know, but
yeah,
that was two films or a bunch of films. Oh, the good one. There was a good one.
There was a good one in there
that you wouldn't think would be good. This is why I should have wrote them down. Whoops. Up Close and Personal, also from 1996.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
That's a movie that at the time, that's a syrupy romance novel of a movie, but that movie holds up really, really well, which you wouldn't think it would, because it's a mid-90s movie that takes place in the mid-80s, and it gets the sort of mid-80s fashions correct, which are all ghastly and terrible, and it takes place, kind of from the past to the present day, so not entirely in the 80s, but still. It's about this ambitious, sort of uneducated woman who wants to be on the news and works her way up through it. And at some point in the story, she hooks up with this old school, news guy played by Robert Redford, who mentors her and turns her into a news superstar with all of her own strengths and none of his weaknesses. And it's a good movie. I was stunned by how good it was, because I remembered it. I only really saw it like on cable one afternoon.
Yeah, I would say that's probably where I saw it too.
Yeah, and I just I remembered it being compelling enough that I hadn't intended to watch it, and I watched the thing all the way through to the end. So that part was true even back then. But I was shocked at like how well made a story it is, how that film clearly started with a script, and how awesome it is to watch a movie like that. And it's a key mix of stuff. A lot of movies start with scripts, but most of them that do these days are based on the incredible true story, like Joel's always pointing out. They're biopics. They tend to be very serious movies. Up Close and Personal is only meant to be super entertaining. That's its whole part. It's its whole plan. It isn't meant, it certainly reflects some interesting things in life, gender dynamics and this and that. But it just wants to entertain you. It's a romantic adventure story to some degree. That's very, for a change, is very tightly on the female perspective, and it's really good. It's a really good film from that era, if you don't mind a blast from the past. And I've watched a bunch recently. I've highlighted some, but I watched what's the one where John Travolta plays an angel, and there's all these films from back then. And a lot of them are just, they're like, this is what these movies were like.
Yeah.
They're not bad because they're all well-meaning and they all have some laughs, but they're these weird high concept star-driven things in an era where it's the concept that would start driving stuff, not the stars. And Hollywood struggled with that balance for a while. But one I really liked is Up Close and Personal's journalistic thriller / romantic comedy all mixed into one.
Yeah.
Which is weird, but it works great. And
well, it's cool to hear that it's still pretty, holds up.
Well, I just thought it's there's nothing like it in today's market. Sure. I found I yearned for that. A story like that. That movie was a big hit at the time.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
A movie with that, even as its premise, wouldn't be a big hit at all. It wouldn't even really get a wide release now. So it sort of showed how times have changed, They made a movie a few years ago where Redford played Dan Rather, and it had Cate Blanchett in it. Is that right? Yeah, Cate Blanchett, and it was about kind of the fall of Dan Rather in the wake of the George W. Bush, blew off his service time in the National Guard or whatever, the National Air Force. That's a brilliant movie. And again, I think in 1996, that it would have been on everybody's radar. We all would have saw that. And that just came and went just with a whimper in our world. You can go get it, but you can watch it. It's out there. It's great. It's called, what's that called?
Trying to look it up here, and it's not coming up.
Look up Redford. He only does one.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Even that's his as a director.
The Truth.
Sorry.
Truth. It's called Truth.
Truth. Yeah.
It's good. Sorry, I'm a little scattered now. I'm a little all over the place on you, but
no, that's good.
Back.
So okay.
Movies like Up Close and Personal today are good. You should check them out.
Yeah.
But because they may come and go without you even noticing. That's the lesson. That film at the time was a huge hit, had the big Celine Dion music video and stuff.
Yeah, Diane Warren. Yeah, another Diane Warren song.
Yeah.
All right. Well, very cool. Very, very cool. Okay. We're going to shift gears here.
Yeah, it's actually, with respect to Diane Warren, who I have no respect for, that song's really made by David Foster. Diane just wrote the stupid lyrics and he sort of turned it into gold.
Hold on. Yeah, Diane Foster. Yeah, okay, well, yeah, written by Diane Warren, performed by Celine Dion. Yep.
Yeah, but he produced that.
He
was producing all the Celine stuff. They're fellow Canadians.
And produced by David Foster. Yep.
Yeah, so it's.
Well, yeah, it had that epic quality that Celine Dion got especially known for. In that 90s 90s period.
And she'd been around forever, but she was just, her big album had just came out before that. Yep. And her monster album was to come out just after. So yeah. So a little Celine Dion biography for you there.
There you go.
Talk about things that are weird, that are inexplicable. Celine Dion's a great one. If you ever can watch an interview with her or whatever, I recommend you do it. Celine Dion is strange. She was raised in captivity, in poverty amongst 17 other siblings or something. Her only true love of her life was her manager that took on her talent when she was like 5, who she later married eventually when she was in her mid-20s. She's lived a life that isn't like anything else any other human on the planet. We can all say, oh, our lives are unique.
Yeah.
But Celine Dion's whole personality and her whole character and her whole performance, which she brings her all every time. That's all based on this crazy, one of a kind existence. And so I don't love her music per se. I don't hate it. It's what it is. It's for a different audience than me, but the anthropology of her is fascinating.
Yeah, she's a biopic waiting to happen.
Yeah, for sure.
I have a dear friend who was a dancer for Celine Dion on tour for like a year and a half or 2 years or something. And
don't start a letter rating campaign against her manager. He's dead now. She's never taken another lover. She's a cute girl, and he waited 17 years or something before he just sort of eventually let himself be in that relationship.
Yep.
But it was her force of will, they both say, that made it happen.
Yep.
That's strange. It is weird and it's fun.
Yep. Okay. So up next is we're going to do a new segment here. Ryan has no idea what I've come up with.
Oh no.
I mean, it was his idea, but he has no idea of the things I'm going to do.
It wasn't really my idea. You made an idea out of a statement I made just in general. So to be fair, it was Joel's idea.
So
he gets the blame.
I get the blame. Yeah, you can write to us at the Movie Show with Joel and Ryan page on Facebook, and at Ask Joel and Ryan on Twitter and Instagram, and at askjoelandryan@gmail.com.
But go ahead, I'll let you explain it. I don't need to cut you off. You're not giving yourself enough credit. I had no idea that this was
the idea behind this is I'm going to ask Ryan a question. Most of these are multiple choice questions. And Ryan can then, if he needs clarification or if he needs parameters on that will help him make his decision, he can ask me follow-up questions.
Nice. But it started with the premise that we don't get any questions from you guys anymore. You've left us out here. We don't even know if you're listening to us anymore. So that makes us sad. Just as a general note to the listenership. We used to get questions every once in a while, but the questions, unfortunately, and this isn't to criticize our fans' interaction with us or whatever, but the questions were always name a movie that.
Sure.
Which are really hard to answer those questions on the spot, which is part of what we like to do. Name a movie that, is the best at this or whatever. My brain, when you ask me a question like that, goes, okay, here's all the movies I've ever seen, which fits this predisposed categorization that you're giving me.
Yep.
And that's overwhelming and not fun for me at all. So I want to come up with the perfect answer. And because I do, I like an engine, I just jam up basically.
Yeah.
But I told Joel, I said, it doesn't have to be like that. I can answer, and we're about to put this to the test, but I said, because maybe this isn't true, but I believe in my heart that I can answer any multiple choice question that you give me. If you give me options, I can pick one and justify it. And I also said, even if I can't, that's at least a discussion in and of itself. Whereas choose from 8 million billion choices, choose the one thing that is thus. That is a difficult question, the way it's framed. This hopefully is easier and will be more fun.
Yep. So I've come up with some multiple choice questions, and in a segment I'm calling "What Do You Do?"
What should I do?
Come on. Come on.
What do you do? What do you do?
Come on.
I don't know.
Come on.
What do you do?
Come on.
What do you do? What should I do?
Come on.
I don't know.
What do you do?
Come on.
What do you do?
I don't know.
Come on with this, or you can get with that.
What do you do?
Come on with this, or you can get with that.
I don't know.
Come on.
What do you do? What do you do?
Come on.
Seriously, what should I do?
I don't know. Maybe this one?
You can get with this, or you can
Wow,
this
this
is
long.
What do you do? Yep.
Oh, that's the end.
That's the end.
When it kicked up again, I was like, "Holy God, it's going to be another minute of this."
No, I was just out. I wanted to just have a fade out there.
That was really fun.
All right. So the
What do you
first
do?
one,
What do you do?
you were on a deserted island, Ryan.
Okay.
Who would you rather be stuck on this deserted island with? This is the first one. This is just an either or. So I'm starting you out nice and easy.
Cool. True or false? Those are always easy. Pass, fail.
Pass. Yeah. Who would you rather be stuck on this island with? John McClane from Die Hard or Captain Stephen Hiller from Independence Day, which is Will Smith's character?
Ooh.
Those are your choices. John McClane, Stephen Hiller. Welcome to Earth.
I didn't realize
Yippee-ki-yay.
I didn't realize this was just going to be torture questions.
Well, they're not all torture questions.
This
one, this was the first one I came up with, so that's why it's first on the list.
Stephen Hiller.
Mm-hmm.
I think the non-alcoholic background will serve us both well on the desert island in a way that I think with McClane, who I'm more of a cousin to than Hiller, but I think Hiller's resourceful. I think his spirit is tough to beat. His jimmer jammering will drive me insane. But,
Yep.
But I think that's true of both people to a certain degree, and I think that he's got some qualities that I think will better serve us on the desert island and make me a little less suicidal, a little less fast. But that was a tough one. That is a tough one.
I mean, I was thinking of who they're both of their resourcefulness, that how resourceful they both are they're
definitely both survivors in the true sense.
And yet they both have some qualities that if you were trapped alone with them might drive you bonkers.
From a pure movie making standpoint, Hiller has the advantage to it that he's captured in time. He hasn't shown up in worse and worse and worse and worse movies throughout time and worn out his welcome. So
there is that. Yeah.
He has a little bit of an edge there as well.
Okay. All right. Second one. Here we go.
What do you do?
Several married couples approach you, Ryan, and they're asking you to join them in a romantic assignation.
Well, this was already off to an impossible start, but go ahead.
Do you go with John and Jane Smith?
Okay, from Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Yeah.
Herman and Lily Munster. Barbara and Oliver Rose from The War of the Roses. Clark and Ellen Griswold.
Right.
Or Ward and June Cleaver.
So this is a menage a trois that I'm choosing between these people? Is that just to come right out and say it?
Come right out and say it, yeah.
If you'd have chosen the Addams Family instead of the Munsters, this would be easy. I'll just say. Let me start by saying that.
I thought about putting Gomez and Morticia on there.
That they'd win in this field by a country mile, I have to say. But you didn't. You chose the Munsters. I went with the Munsters. Against them. They're also cool.
Mm-hmm.
And they're also the least real, which makes it somehow easier to imagine being around them in that setting.
Sure.
So War of the Roses, that's Kathleen Turner and Michael Douglas.
Yep. Absolute.
As a really unimaginative straight guy, it's the guys who are the deal breakers in these couples, by the way. I'm just going to say that. I'll admit that.
That makes sense.
So I apologize for that, but that's
well, frankly, of all of the women here, I mean, for a
straight guy, these ladies are
all good.
Yeah, they're very seductive. So
they're all very beautiful and interesting.
Who was the first one?
John and Jane Smith, Brad Pitt, Angelina Jolie playing. Spies.
I'm completely out of their league, and I'm willing to admit it. So let's cross those guys off the list.
All right.
No Angelina Jolie or Brad Pitt for me in a million years. That would never. I can't even imagine it. So what's the fun in imagining it? You know what I mean? Because just utter rejection. Like I wouldn't even get past their first or second bodyguard in their lives. There's no chance. And if they really were hotshot super spies, I mean, then forget about it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, we're talking about
they're the wrong couple in every way. What was the next one?
Herman and Lily Munster, Barbara and Oliver Rose, Clark and Ellen Griswold.
From they're off the list altogether.
And Ward.
I don't want to get in between whatever their issue is. They're stunning. They're even still married.
Ward and June Cleaver.
Yeah, we're gonna go with the Cleavers.
I think I would go
just for the view behind the scenes back in that time. I want to see what a menage a trois in that era with those clean cut folks would be like. And I feel like I might be not completely out of my element with them. Like, I feel like we'd all be fumbling in the dark a little bit. And that gives me some comfort.
And I have no doubt that Ward Cleaver is an attentive lover.
It feels that way.
Yeah. Okay. Next one.
You're not going to pick one?
Oh, I was, the thing is,
I know you picked one already, right?
Yeah. Well, Ward and June Cleaver, it was between that. I mean, Herman and Lily Munster, I feel like, would be incredibly interesting. But the product of their offspring is Marilyn, who is pretty, normal. Maybe they just have but
also widow's peak boy.
Yeah.
They have more than one kid.
Barbara and Oliver Rose from War of the Roses, that anger and that crazy might make for a crazy night, like a bonkers experience. But
yeah, like I said, I'm just not very adventurous. I really did pick the safest spot I could be in. And I think for my first three-way, I really do think that's advisable and smart. I'm just trying to be pragmatic.
And if you can't be pragmatic, then there's no reason asking.
What do you do?
All right, so the next one is you have the opportunity, Ryan, to go back to a prestigious center for education.
Cool.
Do you choose to go back to Rydell High, which is Greece, Ridgemont High, where they have Fast Times? I know you won't choose this one. Shermer High, which is the high school essentially from all of the John Hughes movies.
Yeah, but go ahead.
Okay. Bayside High, which is it's Saved by the Bell. Sunnydale High, which is Buffy the Vampire Slayer, or Welton Academy from Dead Poets Society.
I'm gonna choose the Breakfast Club High School, actually.
Okay.
You thought I wouldn't choose.
I would not.
I'm not a John Hughes fan.
Yep.
But it's in Chicago. All of these are in California, except the Dead Poets Society one. The Dead Poets Society one is a all-male school. I wouldn't do very well in that setting.
School, yeah.
I like the idea of having that particular cat as a teacher and being in that version of what's the Shakespeare they do at the end of that?
Midsummer
Fairies and stuff.
Yeah, Midsummer.
I was in a version of Midsummer. I don't know. I just can't remember anything these days. I apologize.
Stupid sidebar. I saw Midsummer Night's Dream, the RSC version of Midsummer Night's Dream on Broadway, sitting 2 seats away from Robert Sean Leonard.
Oh,
and
nice.
I totally geeked out going, oh my God, he did this in the Poet Society and now we're watching it together. Oh my God. So I totally
goodness
about that. Yeah.
Robert Sean Leonard is aces. So anyway, that has a lot of appeal, but it's out of step in time with my sensibilities and I'm telling you, all the rest of it. Bayside is really tempting. Yeah. But again, let's just be real. Who am I going to be in an episode of, and this is important.
How
folks,
would you, where would you exist
in that? Be in an episode of Saved by the Bell? I'm not going to be one of the romantic leads for all the hot chicks in that show. That's not going to happen. I'm going to be either be some weird bully villain sidekick or some kind of weird dude with some kind of problems that they all have to learn about during the week. And I don't want to be those things. So I don't want to go to that perfect school where everybody's a beautiful model or whatever.
Except for Screech.
Exactly. So that I can be Screech's cousin from Minnesota for an episode. It doesn't,
Yeah.
And they can all learn to accept me and then get rid of me as soon as possible and be on to other things.
Yes.
So
Google. Audience, Google Zach Morris's trash and watch those episodes. They're very
But it was tempting. It was tempting. For a moment, I was like, ooh, yes, that's where I'm going. But look at yourself in the mirror, Ryan. You're not Bayside material, let's face it. So I'm going to pick the Breakfast Club school. That school kind of looks like my school looked. It's in the Midwest.
Yeah, you probably would do well.
I hope I don't.
Shermer.
I'm a few years back from those assholes in the Breakfast Club, so hopefully I don't run across any of them specifically. Sure. Mm-hmm. And then we're good.
All right.
Right?
Very cool.
I had some detention in junior high because of my big mouth. But I didn't spend a second of detention in high school. I grew up just enough.
Got it under control just in time.
That's right. So I think I'm good. I think I could actually do that.
Okay. I like it. All right. See, for me, I don't know. I would choose I might choose Bayside. I might go with Bayside.
Well, I
think I might do okay at Bayside.
You're better. Yeah, you're better groomed, sort of better type for that. Yeah. I agree. That was tempting.
Yeah.
What do you do?
All right. Next one. You are starting your own talk show. You've been hired to host your own late night talk show.
Late night, okay.
Well,
that's a relief.
Yeah, sure. We'll go with late night. Yeah. Your first guest is either George Clooney or Bill Murray. I'll let you answer this one first.
Clooney.
I'll let you, because maybe who the whole show is. I'll give you your whole show, and you can decide. You can mix and match. So
that one was easy. George Clooney. I don't want to have anything to do with Bill Murray. Bill Murray is as big a wild card as there's ever been in the interview business.
Okay.
Maybe on my 90th show, maybe on my 100th anniversary. Not on the first show. Do I want to be sitting next to Bill Murray?
Okay.
No thanks. Clooney. He's easy. He's always got something to sell.
He's pretty clever and very funny. All right, first guest, George Clooney. We're over Bill Murray. Okay, your second guest, second segment.
Sorry if that makes me a pussy, but you guys we all love Bill Murray, but
I brought him up because he was, he's famously the first guest first and last guest Letterman ever had. That was why he popped into my head. All right. Your second guest, second segment after the commercial break with George Clooney, you bring out your second guest, and it's either football great Chris Collinsworth or football great Terry Bradshaw.
Chris Collinsworth.
Okay.
You can see already how boring my show is going to be.
Your musical guests. So then after your segment,
should I explain Terry Bradshaw and Chris Collinsworth?
Well, I mean, why Chris
Terry Bradshaw's a clown.
Yeah.
He's just a big clown. He's just you can't talk football with him. You can't talk to a person that's there about their life experience because he's so shut off from who his actual self is that you're not going to get anything interesting as far as that goes. And that's it. That's enough. There's not a person there. With Collinsworth, there is. Collinsworth's more like me. So maybe, again, I'm choosing comfort here where I can, we can talk football. He knows more about football than me. That'd be fun. I'm clever enough about it that I could ask, I think, some good questions.
Yep.
But Collinsworth, from a biographical standpoint, he's an open book. He was a bit of a clown too, but he's still in touch with himself and who he is.
Yeah.
Terry Bradshaw. I'm going to tell you a Terry Bradshaw story. Can I?
Yeah, I was just going to say real quick, that was for me. Terry Bradshaw might be a more entertaining to the audience.
He's the Richard Simmons guest where he just takes over the segment and you just got to
ride with
cross your legs and let him
keep tossing up stuff for him to be goofy about. Yeah.
But my late night show, Joel, is going to be at least occasionally substantive.
Well, that's what I needed to know. Yeah.
If I'm choosing. Terry Bradshaw's an interesting story. There was a journalist when he was a rookie for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Bradshaw's from Louisiana, I want to say originally.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah.
Same as
Mississippi. Yeah.
Is somewhere down there. Same as Brett Favre's from Mississippi. I think Joe Namath's from that area. He was a big, big time recruit and draft pick for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And this journalist came to hang out with him and do this sort of week in the life of Terry Bradshaw. And he hung out with him all week. And it was a crazy week. Bradshaw was still this kid from down south, this good old boy. When he had a free moment, him and this journalist went on this road trip to this huge party on a farm that he'd heard about, and they just partied all night for like a whole 24-hour period and hung out. They had this adventure together. It was this sort of fascinating thing. At the time, in the whatever it was, the late 60s, I mean, the writer couldn't really write about any of that. He was like,
yeah.
Then he goes to practice, and this is what he thinks about that. But that same guy came to him up to Bradshaw because they were in some award ceremony or something together. It's like 5 years later or so. He came up to him, and Terry didn't even recognize him, didn't even know who he was. Terry Bradshaw was not capable of it's weird that he's a big media superstar because he was not capable of handling the media. The media killed that spirit of a person inside him, killed it dead. To the point that he was just a performer for the rest of his life, and he still is.
Yeah.
I found that when I read that article, and I'm paraphrasing a lot of it and probably getting some details wrong, but it's just the story that I read from this journalist, and it's heartbreaking. And it actually, whenever I see Bradshaw on TV now, I just see this sad thing, and it brings me no joy whatsoever. He's been. Because he's not what he is, and he's been, and that's what everyone wants. It's just a sad clown that do a dance for me, and he just does it, so that he doesn't have to engage with reality in any sort of way. I just find that super tragic. So maybe I should have him on the show, but at the same time, I don't want to kick a puppy either. Just let him be at this point.
Yep. Okay. So now your musical guest. You get to
Sorry
choose
for
between.
These. I find that story interesting, so maybe the audience does too. It's hard to say.
Your musical guest is either My Friend the Chocolate Cake or Not Drowning Waving.
Which lost Australian chamber pop band do I want to reunite for my show? That's impossible.
you can either reunite
Beauty
them,
of it
or
is that they
share
2 or 3 members between them. They're the same
true.
band.
That is true. Yeah.
So I'm gonna go with My Friend the Chocolate Cake because I think the strings and the percussion, they write, I think, songs that are more fun. The Not Drowning Waving quit because the guitar player, founding member, has terrible stage fright and doesn't like doing things like that. So I'm not going to force him to show up on my show either. John Phillips, God bless. check those bands out.
Check those bands out. My
them.
Friend, The Chocolate Cake, and Not Drowning, Waving. Very fun, very cool.
They're
bands.
both driven by the songwriting and singing and piano playing of a guy named David Bridie. They're both Australian bands. Not Drowning, Waving's from the late 80s to mid 90s, and they're very sort of like alternative world music, if you want to say. Catchy songs, but very politically driven and very serious, and lots of soundscapes and stuff, and multiple percussion instruments and collaborations with the artists of Papua New Guinea. And you know what I mean? It's that sort of Peter Gabriel pretensions that are lovely, but they still are, they're a kind of Australian folk band at heart. So the songs are very earthy or whatever. My Friend, The Chocolate Cake, sort of a vacation from that idea. It's the same songs, but it's cello and viola and mandolin, and it's very, very folky. And they certainly have their serious moments, but they're a more joyful, fun act. And I love them both equally, and Joel knows that. And that's why he's stuck that question to me. But
so tune in to Ryan's talk show with his first guest, George Clooney, Chris Collinsworth, and My Friend, The Chocolate Cake. Love it. All right,
sounds like a good show, doesn't it?
Hey, I'd watch that.
What do you do?
Okay, so next one up is so you're under attack by an intergalactic threat, and your only choice is to leave the planet. And when you go to the local starship shop, you choose either Serenity, the Serenity ship, the Firefly ship Serenity, Slave One, the Palomino, since we were talking about the black hole.
Oh, yeah.
The Eagle 5,
which is from Space 1999.
Yep.
Okay.
The Gunstar from The Last Starfighter.
Oh.
Thunderbird 3 from Go Thunderbirds.
Okay.
Or the Narcissus, which was the shuttle that from the Nostromo.
It's the tugboat part of the Nostromo, not the refinery part.
Correct, the tugboat part. So Serenity, Slave 1, the Palomino, the Eagle 5, the Gunstar, Thunderbird 3, or
That's
the Narcissus.
Way too many, by the way.
Okay.
Our first lesson of this segment is too many, and I can't even remember more than 4 or 5.
Okay.
That said, we can
really
eliminate
fun.
a bunch of these right away.
It was really fun listing these, thinking of these. I'm like,
they're
oh my
all
God, this ship. Oh, you know,
they're all awesome, aren't they?
And I was like, I can't put the ones
Let's
from
get
Buck
rid of the
Rogers
ones with no artificial gravity right away. Okay.
Okay.
Palomino out.
Palomino out.
The Last Starfighter ship is out, and there's really not room in that, nor is there much room in Slave 1. So let's get rid of that. But Slave 1's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
But I don't like the idea of, I like my ship to have what approximates a top and a bottom, and Slave 1 lands one way, flies another. That makes
it an awkward ship. Yep.
Just a bit. It's cool, but I'm going to say no. So that leaves Narcissus or
the Narcissus, Thunderbird 3.
Let's get rid of Thunderbird 3.
Okay. The Eagle 5 or Serenity.
Unless I can live on Thunderbird 3 as a real person with puppet hands.
Ooh, I like that.
But let's put that in a holding pattern for now.
Okay.
And not the other way around. I do not want to be a puppet with human hands, Joel.
Well, no. I
cannot stress that enough.
Very few people would choose that, I think.
No, so I'm inclined to say no to that. But maybe there's some options there I don't know about. I'd have to talk to the sales guy. So that doesn't leave hardly any. It leaves the Narcissus and the Serenity. So it's got to be Serenity.
Okay.
Serenity feels like home. Narcissus feels like you're a piece of dog food that's been packed away for a long voyage to nowhere.
Sure, but it is reliable, whereas Serenity is,
Serenity has its problems.
Yep.
That's for sure.
Okay.
But maybe I'll be more enterprising. I'm more of a go along to get along guy. Maybe if I can just, work a little more hand in hand with the authorities of the day, which I think I'm capable of doing. I'm a diplomat.
Yeah.
And maybe I can make a little more money, keep it in better repair. Let's hope.
There you go. Okay.
And all I got to do, if I want that Narcissus quiet, empty feel, I just get rid of all my friends and get one of those dunking giraffe like things that. So there's some movement on the ship, even if I'm not there. I'm also allergic to cats, so.
Yeah, well, yeah, it does not say it comes with cat. I could have put that in there. But
the cat lived there for a long time.
It's true.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's true. Yes, getting that.
There's no carpet in there, but
getting
get
that
what
cat
I'm saying.
dander out of the gears might be.
It's not a deal breaker, but it's a consideration.
All right, yeah, that's absolutely right. Okay, we're good on time, so I have 2 more, and we're gonna roll with them. Okay,
sweet.
Okay. So
I'm glad I told my Terry Bradshaw story.
You wake
I
up.
know everyone else is too.
So you wake up in a room that you've never been in before.
Okay.
After showering, you find several outfits laid out for you. Which do you put on?
What do you do?
The Luke Skywalker Bespin outfit? The Captain Malcolm Reynolds outfit, complete with brown coat. Tony Monero's white suit from Saturday Night Fever. Jeans with a jean jacket and puffy vest, a la Marty McFly, or a tupa from Defending Your Life.
What do you do?
Yeah.
That's a tough one.
It is a tough one.
Well, I'm not wearing that white suit.
I didn't. Yeah, it would take
and
a special.
I wouldn't look good in the beige
Bespin outfit.
For Luke Skywalker.
Yeah.
Han Solo's I would try and wear with the jacket and everything. That's a little darker.
Which is why that did not make the list because
it's too easy, right?
Because Ryan would look.
Stripes down the side of the pants.
I'm like, you would look good in that. So I can't make it that easy. I can't make it that easy.
Fair enough. But yeah, that I like the pockets. Like those would come in handy. There's a ton of pockets on the Luke's. You know, we never see him go in there for anything, but that'd be okay.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I'm gonna have to say no to tan. I'm having a hard time getting over the fact that I woke up in a strange room and just quick took a shower. Like that's not the first thing I would do.
Well, I mean, you looked around, you did. I'm just saying, at whatever point you decided to take a shower, you came back out and suddenly there were these outfits for you.
And nothing else, presumably. I don't have any other choices. So
no.
Yeah, so I don't think Marty McFly is my style. I wish I was, but I'm not. I'm probably the thug that wears the 3D glasses. That's more my that would be my role in that film. So it wouldn't be him. Then that leaves
Captain Mal Reynolds or the brown coat.
Try not to repeat my answers, but what's my other option? There was one other one.
Or a tupa.
Oh, a tupa. Wow, geez. I'm not too rowdy, and I wouldn't damage the tupa.
The tupa. I don't think you would. And I got to say, not a lot of people can pull off a tupa, but I sort of feel like you can.
I got a bit of a gut.
But so does Albert Brooks. Yeah, I think a tupa might be flattering on you. I'm just saying.
And I really like that red tailcoat with the brown pants and the low slung holster. You know, again, that's who we wish we were, right? But tupa's, one purpose.
It's got to be comfortable.
It's got to be super comfortable. So I guess I'll go with the tupa.
Yeah, I think you'd look good in a tupa.
I hope so.
Because
if I don't.
Yeah. I'd Marty McFly that thing.
That'd be good. That'd be good for you. I feel like I don't have some of those options. I think you can do the Luke Skywalker thing too.
Oh, I don't know if I could do that, but yeah.
Yes, you totally could.
Okay. Last one.
You totally could do that. That's what's frustrating. I'm like, well, the tupa or some other tupa.
I gotta say options. Though, if I were to look at it, I'd go, I might look at my options going, that's cool. That'd be kind of cool. That'd be fun to wear. But then I'd go, or maybe like later in the afternoon, I'd be like, yeah, this was a mistake. I'm changing into the Tupa.
Yeah. Well, assuming they don't take away whatever you don't
That's
choose.
true. Yeah. And that would be a risk that I'd have to take, I suppose.
And that's where the Tupa is a risk, because if you really hate it and you get stuck in the Tupa is it's like a cross between a kimono and a bathrobe.
Essentially, yeah.
For people who don't know. And it does look comfortable, but and our heroes do look pretty good in them, but there are plenty of people wandering around the afterlife who do not look good in Tupas.
Yeah. Well, as Bob Diamond,
I would not want to be one of those guys.
Yeah, Bob Diamond says not everybody can pull those off. Yep. So, all right, last one.
What do you do?
Ryan, your troops are tired, yet they are still determined. You rouse them up with a speech before leading them on a charge at the enemy. Do you end your speech with, "The Force will be with you always"? Or do you end it with, "By Grabthar's hammer, you will be avenged"? Do you end your speech with, "Freedom"? Or do you end it with this? I have a lot of these. Or do you end it with, "And you will know my name is the Lord when I lay my vengeance upon thee"? Or do you end it with, "By Grabthar's hammer, what a savings"? Or do you end it with, "I am Andrew Shepard and I am the president"?
Those are my choices.
Those are your choices. May the force will be with you always.
Well, let's get rid of the ones that have to do with vengeance. I have no vengeance in my heart.
So by Grabthar's hammer, you will be avenged is out.
Is out. And
I lay my vengeance upon thee will be out.
Right.
So that leaves the force will be with you. Freedom by Grabthar's hammer. What a savings.
I can't pull off freedom.
Yeah,
so
no.
Let's drop that one.
Freedom would be tough. The force will be with you always. By Grabthar's hammer, what a savings. And I am Andrew Shepard and I am the president.
I'm not Andrew Shepard and I'm not the president. That one sucks because that's awesome, but it's not gonna
I think delivered with the right amount of verve, I think your troops would go along with it. I'm just saying. Yeah,
but you think back, that's an all caps clincher. It deserves to be on this list, Joel. So I'm not ripping out, but it's relatively underplayed by the cat in question. And if I'm going to underplay something and break out my Newhart impression for a rousing speech, it's got to be by Grabthar's hammer. What a savings. Like, I feel I'm ideally suited, maybe not as good as Rickman to read it, but I love it. Like I can do Force will be with you always. That's just that brilliance of that is it's just completely generic and meaningless enough that just about anybody can do it. I mean, that's the brilliance of it. Truly, it's like it means nothing, and yet the meaning of it comes across and how you do it. And so I like that one. But what a savings, really. It's some good deals.
Yeah.
And there's no point in denying it because our dignity is at stake.
And we will charge forward. We will defeat the enemy by Grabthar's hammer. What a savings. All right. That's going to do it for...
What do you do?
Yeah, that's right.
Not bad.
So I hope that was enjoyable for the listener. I
had a lot of fun.
I had a lot of fun putting it together. So
yeah, you can write us and tell us no more of those or
I think. But even if you say no, I have a feeling you're going to get some. Maybe not as long. Maybe not as long of a segment as that. But I might have a few of those in my back pocket.
Maybe this A segment becomes a future B segment.
I think this is definitely a future B segment possibility. So
that was fun. We had no good ideas for a show. We had
and we both were crazy busy this past week. And
this was fun, and we got to talk about some other topical things, which is also fun.
And I think we had some good answers. I think you gave some well thought out well-reasoned answers.
Well, your questions were designed for me to cast myself in these situations. And if I'm going to do that, I really do look at myself like you can run this by Jen and see if she thinks it's true, but I really do run it. I've gone through several different types for casting agents throughout the years, and the type I am now, or the type I was in high school, you just have to.
Yep.
It's a good thing for an actor to be able to do, to look in the mirror and see how other people see you. I know that's not popular from a Facebook meme standpoint, where you're supposed to not care how anybody else sees you because only what you think about you is important.
It's true.
But I sadly don't subscribe to that. I think that's an asinine way to go through life. I think having some awareness, pulling your head out of your own ass and recognizing how people respond to things you do is sort of important. It's a little thing here at the Movie Show with Joel and Ryan, we call it.
And I think it's always good.
Yeah,
I think it's always good to ask.
What do you do?
So
it's good. Keep those hypotheticals coming.
Indeed. All right, folks, that's going to do it for us for this week. Thank you all so much. You could reach out to us once again at the Movie Show with Joel and Ryan page on Facebook, at Ask Joel and Ryan on Instagram and Twitter, and Ask Joel and Ryan at Gmail.
If it's not obvious, we need you more than ever.
And if you're watching this on YouTube, click subscribe. You can watch us here every week. All right. Take care, everybody.
We
bye.
Love you all. Not equally.
We love you all, some more than others.
To some degree, we love you all. And it's important to say that every once in a while.
Thank you for listening to The Movie Show with Joel and Ryan. Remember, all views and opinions represented in this podcast are personal and belong solely to the speaker and do not represent those people, institutions, or organizations that the speaker may or may not be associated with, unless explicitly stated. None of these views and opinions were intended to malign or deceive. And now, here's the producers, circa 1982, to play us out.